now we start with a shock decision from the Migration Advisory Committee. It says that the UK's graduate visa route is not undermining the integrity and the quality of the higher education system and should remain. Well, the scheme, of course, allows overseas students to stay in the UK for 2 or 3 years after graduation. I'm now joined in the studio in Westminster by our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome back to the studio. 745,000 net migration to the UK last year by a country mile. The biggest tranche of that are student visas. 457,000 of the things issued last year alone. Forget about small boats. That's small beer compared to this. Ministers today have asked for a clampdown. They've been knocked back. And guess why? Because the Migration Advisory Committee says we shouldn't worry about putting universities out of business.
It's the elephant in the room. Net migration, legal migration. The Treasury have been very relaxed about this. They see it as a way to improve and get the economy going. But the problem is, as you allow more people into the country, our net value to our profitability, our value to the economy per person falls, and that's the problem here. And that's why Tory MPs are so concerned about it. You see a lot from the PM about illegal migration, small boats and the like, and that seems a lack of control of borders. But net migration, the Treasury have been very relaxed about having big numbers coming through the doors. They're forecasting 400,000 this year net. There's a view here from the Migration Advisory Committee that figure could come down to 200,000 a year, but whether that's with jiggery-pokery, taking students out of the migration figures could allow that to happen. Not clear yet, but there's no question here this is a blow, I think, for anyone who thinks this government will control net migration. I've got to say, though, that Labour is hardly there either. These numbers were around the tens of thousands 20 years ago. They're nowhere near that now, and nowhere near that for a long time in the future.
And this is legal migration through the front door, not illegal migration via dinghies. This is something they could control. They could pass a law, pass legislation to get rid of it. But the fascinating thing about this is that the Treasury has targets. They're going in a different direction because they want more students. They're bothered about the university losing its financial stability, about job losses, about course closures. But aren't we bothered about keeping immigration down?
We're bothered about the economy too, and it comes down to who do you want to come here. So, arguably, to have people who are arriving here to work in our universities are the high-end graduates who we do want here, even though we're not building enough homes to house them. So there's a debate, I think, in politics about whether you want more migrants to come through the door if they're graduates or will be graduates and stay here and contribute to the economy.
Except we could do that if we got the elite people in who paid the top wonga but in smaller numbers, because there's manifest examples of Mickey Mouse degrees of some courses that don't even exist, of universities that don't exist, of students who don't go along to any lectures. And the staggering statistic is the stay-on rate, those staying after their course has expired, has gone up from 21% in 2019 to 63%.
Well, the frustration is
2/3 remain in the country.
And the frustration is, Martin, as you rightly say, that the government is allowing these big numbers to come through the door, and Labour aren't offering anything differently, but they are allowing 5 million people to sit on benefits and not go back to work. And the problem is importing Labour like this does not make us all per head, per capita richer. And that's the debate, I think, at the heart of this entire conversation.
It just seems, once again, the Treasury Department, the Migration Advisory Committee, whoever these departments are, they're rowing in a different direction to what people voted for, to take back control of immigration and our borders. Moving on, you've got some juicy gossip. There could be, Chris, potentially, another defection. What's the latest?
A third defection in the past few weeks from the Tories to Labour. That is what is being talked about by people close to the PM, Rishi Sunak. Will there be another one tomorrow? Will we see a Natalie Elphicke figure crossing the floor of the House of Commons, literally crossing the floor from the Tory benches to Labour benches? There is talk they are expecting another one tomorrow. Now, I've been around journalism for long enough to know that they might be trying to spin it to raise expectations. When it doesn't happen, people ask Labour, where is your defector gone? So there could be that feeling, but certainly it is talk over there. Will happen tomorrow. The whips are on high alert for a defection tomorrow.
But the main thing is, it seems to be one-way traffic. It seems to be the direction of travel, the defections from the blue corner to the red corner. The momentum is there. And, we get bogged down in the minutiae, in the detail, the Westminster, the internals. But in broad brushstrokes, Chris, do you think they just say to voters, if Natalie Elphicke a right-wing MP, so right-wing she could fall off the white cliffs of Dover. If she can go to the red corner, then I too can as a voter.
I think it does give a feeling that this party is listing, and it does look like it gives voters permission to vote Labour if they haven't voted Labour before. Look at Natalie Elphicke. Both Elphicke and Dan Poulter before her were loner MPs without big groups of people around them. They were not preferred in ministerial posts, really. I think that would be, for me, I think that is, I can see why Labour did it. There's a concern amongst the left-wing support base for Labour. Why you're allowing someone like Natalie Elphicke, who's backed the small boats, like Rwanda plan, who backed Boris Johnson to come over to Labour. But I think, stepping back, from those who aren't following the minutiae of politics, it looks like the people are leaving this Tory party and joining Labour. It gives you permission to vote Labour.
And is it 65 and rising MPs that won't be standing? What's the latest number?
Well, I think it's well into the mid-70s now. It was 75 from memory in 1997, so we haven't quite got over the figure who fled the party in 97. I do, though, think that the reason why we are seeing more than normal is this is the first planned election since 2015. We've had 2 emergency elections in 17 and 19. It's the first time we've had a full 5-year parliament and then a chance to stand down. So MPs are planning for the future, but it looks like more Tory MPs are quitting than Labour ones.
As I've just seen Nigel Farage walk in outside there, can I quickly talk to you about this poll that came out? Tom Lubbock, the co-founder of JL Partners, we had him on earlier. Nigel Farage comeback could be an extinction level event for the Conservative Party, with Nigel reform going to 16% from 10% without, Labour on 45 without Farage, down to 41 with Farage. Tories go from 25 down to 21. Interestingly there, both parties losing 4 percentile points, suggesting it's not always a case of splitting the Conservative vote. He's tight-lipped. We don't know which way he's going to go, but nevertheless, Rishi Sunak's worst nightmare.
It's tempting, isn't it, for Farage to come back in? He knows he's a mischief maker. He wants to cause problems for the Tory party. He feels let down by the way he stood down his own candidates in 2019 for no real thanks to the Tory party, bequeathing the majority which the Tories have squandered over the past 4 years since that election in 2019. What we're looking at is crossover. Will there be a point in the polls when Reform are more popular than the Tory party? Not yet, but certainly I think you could see a 5 or 6 point boost to Reform if Farage came across. Perhaps viewers can email him in tonight on his programme and say, go on, Nigel, say what your plans are.
Well, he's outside there now. He's got a bit of a smile on his face, so let's see if he's going to be telling the punters later on of his next move. Christo, always an absolute delight to have you in the studio.